Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now Battlefield 1 is probably one of my favourite games in the series, so when the Steam version went on sale for about £4, I just had to buy it. The game has seen a bit of a resurgence in popularity recently, with tens of thousands of people playing daily 6 years after its release. It's no surprise really, considering that this game still holds up both visually and in terms of gameplay, featuring some of the most iconic and memorable missions across all the Battlefield games, at least in my opinion. It doesn't take a modern high-end graphics card to run it with well over 60 FPS either. 2019's GTX 1650 Super is a good example of this, as it manages to run the game with over 100 frames per second. This is the case for both the single player and the multiplayer element of the game. It's fair to say I'm not very good at this at all. In fact, I've probably never got any better at first-person shooters since I first loaded up the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 back in 2009. That said, I do still find this fun, and its excellent performance with this once great value budget graphics card made me wonder just how low we could go hardware-wise. I'll be the first to admit that this is a bit of a filler video. I've purchased a few bits on eBay and they just haven't turned up yet, so I thought we'd check out this soon-to-be classic first-person shooter while I wait for my purchases to arrive in the post. Aside from being fun to play and fairly easy to run these days, Battlefield 1 benefits from a resolution scale slider. It hails from before a time when FSR, DLSS or XeSS existed, so there was no upscaling involved either. You drop this thing down to 25% and 25% is exactly what you get. Glorious 480 by 270 resolution. Now this is completely unnecessary with a card like the GTX 1650 Super, as the game hits the 200 FPS cap with no issues whatsoever. In this mission we assume the role of a female rebel, though under the current circumstances we're playing from the perspective of a female rebel who has forgotten her glasses. That said, the game still manages to look somewhat decent underneath all the pixelated edges and jagged lines. There's still that certain Battlefield 1 charm underneath this mess. Let's move on to something better suited to the situation at hand though, something like this, the GT710. Just 2 years old at the time of this game's launch, the 710 came in a few different variants, but any of the GDDR5 cards would have been and still will be a better choice, though the difference between the DDR3 and the GDDR5 models might not be as significant as it would be with other more powerful GPUs. Any 710 is pretty terrible for gaming, but by turning the game down to the low settings and maintaining our 25% resolution scale, we can actually hit close to 60 frames per second in the single player war stories. I mean, it's pretty horrific to look at, but I can still make out enemy vehicles, NPCs and everything else, just about. And when it comes to the multiplayer, well, the same can be said. As someone who sucks at the game anyway, any drop in clarity definitely isn't going to help me out, but just enough clarity remains where I can actually see what's going on. Just like before, the multiplayer element of the game runs a little worse than single player, but there's more variation with what's going on, and I tested across 3 different games as opposed to the single opening war story. The game still hits between 50 and 60 frames per second a lot of the time, and there are some moments where we exceed that higher end figure. Other times the game will drop to the mid-40s, but if you can excuse the visuals, then the frame rate isn't too bad. And when we take the system requirements into consideration, yeah, even getting these performance numbers is quite the achievement. But what if you're absolutely adamant with averaging 60 frames per second? I say that because there's no way we can consistently maintain that at any setting. What if 60 FPS or somewhere closer to it is a matter of life and death, which may very well be the case with an online competitive first-person shooter, especially if you're up against someone who's playing at a more solid frame rate. Well, we can always drop things down to 720p. It's not always the case in games with a static resolution scaling option, but Battlefield 5 actually lets us maintain 25% scaling at 720p as well. This time then we're basically running at 320 by 180. Let's call this 180p. Battlefield 1 80p. That might be a good choice for the title of this admittedly overrunning filler video. Now I don't know why, but at this resolution I seem to be performing better than I usually do. I don't know if it's because the on-screen enemies now look like giant pixelated masses, or whether it's because I just got lucky. It certainly isn't skill, put it that way. Now I tested a few online multiplayer games at this resolution, all conquest matches, and I found that the average when combined was 61, so achieving the 60 FPS target in Battlefield 1 with a shocking card like the 710 is doable with some massive sacrifices, and I mean really big sacrifices, but if you're desperate, you could play like this. I shouldn't really say that because it does hurt my eyes, and the bigger the monitor or television that you're using, the worse the graphics are going to look. Furthermore, there will certainly be some drops below the average of 61, just not as many as before, so consistent frame rates still aren't going to be entirely possible. It is a good effort from the 710 considering what it is. Well, it's an effort at least. What I found particularly funny about playing at this res, aside from the extra fat enemy players, are the fire effects and explosions that consist of about 20 pixels. It's like we've got some sort of Lego filter over the screen. Other building block brands are available. The good news is that the HUD and other on-screen icons and such remain at native resolution from what I can tell anyway, so it's easy to make out the time, score and minimap. With everything else, there is still a certain charm that remains, and I could most certainly still identify this as Battlefield 1 if I was asked. After a few hours of play, my eyes are strained beyond belief, so I think we'll leave this one here. Now, I'm not entirely sure what the point of this video was. I think I just wanted to play Battlefield 1 again, and I couldn't help but see how it ran on the worst card, or one of the worst cards in my collection. With the amount of players still playing as well, I think this is definitely still worth picking up in 2022, and I think that you might find that the performance is going to be better than what you're initially expecting, especially considering some of the graphical options available, such as the lower presets and the resolution scale too. With all that said then, this has been a sort of retrospective of Battlefield 1 and the 710 in a way, a terrible card that we seem to keep revisiting here on the channel. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like, leave a dislike if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already and you want to, of course. Thank you very much for watching as always, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.